The gathering storm, the Galactic Council chamber, existed in a state of perpetual twilight, a compromise between the visual spectrums of 47 different species. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the designated human platform, her hands clasped behind her back in a posture that her xenopsychology training had taught her, projected both respect and confidence to most council species. Around her, the circular chamber rose in concentric tiers, each level hosting delegations from world-spanning 3 galactic arms. The Methrin floated in their ammonia-filled spheres. The crystalline Shardok refracted light in patterns that served as their primary communication, and the massive Toravani barely fit in their reinforced sections, their 6-limbed bulk a reminder of high-gravity world evolution. Today marked the 50th anniversary of humanity's first contact with the Concordat. 50 years since Captain Maria Okonkwo had stepped onto the alien surface of Proxima Centauri b and met the Catharan explorers. 50 years of peace, trade, and cultural exchange. 50 years of humanity proving they belonged among the stars, or so Chen had thought. The human delegation will address the concern raised by Representative Velkari, the council arbiter announced, their translated voice echoing through the chamber's acoustic systems. Chen's jaw tightened imperceptibly. She'd reviewed the Velkari's filed complaint 36 times during the journey to the council homeworld. Each reading had made her blood pressure rise another notch. From the 3rd tier, Representative Zaxthor of the Velkari rose to his full height, nearly 3 meters of scaled, muscular physiology that had evolved on a world where being prey meant extinction. His species had clawed their way to the top of their food chain through pure aggression, and even now, 10,000 years after achieving spaceflight, they wore their predator heritage like a badge of honor. Esteemed Council, Zaxthor began, his translated voice carrying an edge of controlled menace. For 50 cycles, we have welcomed the humans as partners in the Concordat. They came to us speaking of peace, of mutual benefit, of exploration over exploitation. He paused, letting his words sink in. But I submit to this council that we have been deceived. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Chen felt her security chief, Marcus Webb, tense beside her. She touched his arm briefly, a silent command to remain calm. Deceived? The arbiter's tone carried carefully modulated curiosity. This is a serious allegation, Representative. Please elaborate. Zaxthor's claws clicked against his platform's surface. The humans present themselves as peaceful explorers, yes? They sign non-aggression pacts, they establish trade agreements, they participate in cultural exchanges. But they hide something fundamental about their nature. Representative, if you have evidence of human treaty violations, Chen began. I speak not of legal violations. Ambassador, Zaxthor interrupted, a breach of protocol that the arbiter let slide. I speak of biological deception. My science division has studied your species extensively. Your homeworld, this Earth, is a death world by galactic standards. Gravity 1.3 times standard. Atmosphere composition that would be toxic to most species. Native life forms of astonishing lethality. Many council species hail from challenging environments, Chen countered. The Toravani evolved on a world with twice standard gravity. True, Zaxthor acknowledged. But the Toravani evolved to survive their world's gravity. Humans evolved to survive something else entirely. He activated a holographic display that filled the chamber's center. Your world teems with apex predators. Your ancestors didn't just survive alongside them. You outlasted them, outcompeted them, drove most to extinction. The hologram shifted, showing Earth's evolutionary timeline. Chen had seen it before in academic settings, but watching it play out for the council, she began to understand the Velkari's concern. The short-faced bear, Zaxthor narrated, the saber-toothed cat, the dire wolf, the cave lion, megalodon, terror birds, all apex predators of their eras, all extinct, all outlived by your species which possessed no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. The hologram zoomed in on a human figure, just endurance, pattern recognition, tool use, and something the Velkari recognize well, the ability to coordinate pack hunts across vast distances. Ancient history, Chen said firmly. Humanity evolved, yes, but we also civilized. We built societies based on law, cooperation, and mutual benefit. The very traits that led to our success on Earth are what make us valuable Concordat members. Do you deny your evolutionary heritage? Zaxthor pressed. Do you deny that your species evolved as pursuit predators? That your ancestors ran prey animals to exhaustion over days-long hunts? That you have the highest endurance of any sapient species in this council? We don't deny our history, Webb spoke up, his voice level. We just don't let it define our future. Zaxthor's eyes fixed on the human security chief. And there stands my point perfectly illustrated. Marcus Webb, former Earth Military Special Operations Division, combat veteran of the Titan Colony Uprising. 43 confirmed enemy combatants eliminated. You surround your peaceful ambassadors with soldiers, yet claim to embrace peace. Security personnel, Chen corrected. Standard for all delegations. The Methrin travel with technicians. The Shardok with engineers. Only the Velkari and the humans travel with warriors. Zaxthor's tail lashed once, a sign of agitation in his species. I submit that humanity has not shown us their true nature. They play at civilization, but underneath lurks the same predator that drove Earth's megafauna to extinction. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species argued in humanity's defense, others expressed concern. Chen waited for the Arbiter to restore order, her mind racing through response strategies. The Velkari call for a demonstration, Zaxthor declared when silence returned. Prove that you are not simply predators in diplomats' clothing. Prove that your peaceful nature is genuine and not mere strategy. Before Chen could respond, an alarm pierced the chamber's ambiance. The Arbiter's platform lit with urgent symbols. Emergency transmission from Research Station Omega-7, the Arbiter announced. Velkari Facility, Outer Rim Sector. Zaxthor's expression shifted from confrontational to concerned. Omega-7? That's our xenobiology research station. Minimal defensive capabilities. The hologram changed, showing a frantic Velkari researcher. Council, we're under attack. They came out of nowhere. Ravagers. At least 200, maybe more. They've breached the outer sections. We're trapped in the central core with 47 personnel. Environmental systems failing. We have maybe 6 hours of breathable air left. The transmission crackled. They're cutting through the inner doors. Please send help. The chamber fell into shocked silence. The Ravagers were known to everyone present. A nomadic insectoid species that had terrorized the outer rim for a century. They didn't communicate, didn't negotiate, didn't take prisoners. They simply consumed resources and moved on, leaving destroyed stations and dead crews in their wake. Tuman, nearest concordant military response is 16 hours away, the Arbiter stated grimly. Webb leaned close to Chen. We can reach them in 4. Chen turned to her security chief. Marcus, there are over 200 Ravagers. We have a team of 8. Yes, ma'am. His expression hadn't changed. She studied him for a long moment, seeing something in his eyes that she'd witnessed only once before, during the Titan crisis. Something cold, focused, ancient. Chen turned back to the council. The human delegation volunteers to mount a rescue operation. We have a fast response ship in orbit. We can reach the station before the air runs out. Absurd. One of the Methrin representatives bubbled through their translator. Humans have no military forces in this sector. What can 8 security personnel accomplish against 200 Ravagers? We can save those researchers, Webb stated simply. Zaxthor's laugh was harsh. This is what I speak of, human arrogance. You think because you evolved as hunters on your death world you can face the Ravagers? They have armored carapaces that resist projectile weapons, mandibles that can shear through standard hull plating, acid blood. They've destroyed concordant military units twice their number. Then you're condemning those researchers to death, Chen said quietly, because we're the only help that can arrive in time. The Arbiter's platform pulsed with deliberation. The Council cannot order a rescue mission with such low probability of success. However, if the human delegation volunteers, we do, Chen confirmed, then you may proceed. This Council will monitor the situation. Perhaps, the Arbiter added with what might have been irony in their translated tone, this will serve as Representative Zaxthor's requested demonstration. Webb was already moving toward the exit, his team falling into formation around him without a word being spoken. Chen watched them go, then turned back to the Council. You wanted to see humanity's true nature, she said to Zaxthor. You're about to get your wish. I hope you're ready for it. As she followed her team out, she heard the Velkari representative mutter something that the translator rendered as, foolish children, playing at war. Chen smiled without humor. Zaxthor had made one critical error in his research. He'd studied what made humanity successful as hunters. He hadn't studied what made them terrifying as prey, or rather what made them terrifying when they decided something else was prey. The transport ride to their ship took 12 minutes. The Council had arranged a live feed to the chamber. Apparently, they wanted to witness human failure in real time. Chen didn't blame them for the cynicism. By every logical calculation, 8 humans against 200 Ravagers was suicide. She watched Webb and his team prepare in the ship's cargo hold. Their movements had changed. The casual, diplomatic bearing of security personnel had vanished, replaced by something economical, precise, predatory. They checked weapons with practiced efficiency, their faces showing no fear, no doubt. "Just focus. Marcus," Chen called out. "You don't have to do this. No one would think less of you for declining a suicide mission." Webb looked up from his rifle check. For a moment, the diplomat returned. Kind eyes, slight smile. Then it faded and something else looked out at her. "Yes, ma'am, we do," he said softly. "Because if we don't, 47 people die. And because the Council needs to understand something." "What's that?" "That we chose peace not because we're weak." He loaded a magazine with smooth precision. "But because we're not." The ship broke orbit, accelerating toward the outer rim. In the Council chamber, thousands of eyes watched the human ship's trajectory on displays. They calculated odds. They prepared official condolences. They wondered if this demonstration of human foolhardiness would finally prove the Velkari's point. None of them, not even Zaxthor, understood what was coming, because they'd never seen a human in predator mode. Not fully. Not yet. The hunt begins. The human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, momentum carrying it toward the small research station that hung in the darkness like a wounded animal. Marcus Webb studied the tactical display with the same calm intensity he'd brought to 100 combat scenarios across 24 worlds. Research Station. Omega-7 had been a thing of beauty once. A rotating wheel design that generated artificial gravity through spin, its reflective panels catching starlight in elegant patterns. Now it was a battlefield. Scorch marks scarred the outer hull where Ravager ships had attached. Sections were dark, life support failing, and crawling across its surface like a swarm of insects were the attackers themselves. "Analysis," Webb said quietly. Lieutenant Chen, no relation to the ambassador, pulled up enhanced imagery. 214 Ravagers by my count. They've breached in 7 locations. Outer sections are completely overrun. The research team has barricaded themselves in the central core here. She highlighted a section near the station's hub. Life support in that section shows 90 minutes of breathable air remaining, maybe 2 hours if they ration. Ravager capabilities? Full exoskeleton, resistant to standard projectile weapons below 50 caliber. Mandibles can exert 3,000 pounds of force per square inch. Acid blood that eats through most materials. No higher brain function detected. They operate on hive intelligence, coordinated but predictable. She paused. They also have no fear response. They'll attack until destroyed or until their queen calls them off. Webb nodded slowly. On his heads-up display, he could see the Council feed. Thousands of alien species watching, waiting to see how this played out. In the Council chamber itself, Ambassador Chen stood silent, her face composed but her hands gripped tightly behind her back. "Sergeant Kowalski," Webb addressed his second-in-command. "Breach strategy?" The stocky soldier pulled up a 3-dimensional model of the station. "They've got the outer hull covered. We go in through one of their breach points, they'll swarm us in seconds. Recommend we make our own entrance here." He highlighted a section near the research core, in a cleared section. "Fast rappel. Seal behind us, create a defensive perimeter around the researchers. Time to clear a path to their position. If we move fast, 12 minutes. If we encounter heavy resistance, could be 20 or more." Webb studied the display for another 30 seconds. Around him, his team waited in silence. They'd worked together for 3 years. They'd trained together for 5 before that. They knew each other's movements, thoughts, reactions. They were a pack, and Webb was the alpha. "New plan," he said finally. "We're not extracting them. We're exterminating the Ravagers." The cabin went quiet. On the Council feed, he could see the alien observers reacting with shock. One of them, the Methrin who'd called the mission absurd, burbled something the translator rendered as, "They've gone insane. The stress has broken them." Lieutenant Chen's expression didn't change. "Sir, that's not the mission. Our objective is to rescue the researchers. The researchers are secured for now. The Ravagers are cutting through the doors, but those are reinforced steel. They'll hold for the 90 minutes we have remaining. Webb's voice remained level, factual. But if we extract the researchers without eliminating the Ravagers, what happens to the next station they hit? The next crew they trap? Understanding dawned on the faces around him. We're hunters, Webb continued. That's what Representative Zaxthor said, what he's afraid of. He's right. So let's hunt. The ship docked at a maintenance airlock away from the main breaches. Webb was first out, his rifle up, senses alert. The station's interior was a nightmare of emergency lighting and shadows. Ravager biosigns covered his scanner like a rash. Behind him, his team deployed in a formation that would have been familiar to any Earth predator. Pack positioning, overlapping fields of fire, constant communication through micro-movements and sub-vocalized signals. They moved through the station's corridors like ghosts. Where Ravagers patrolled alone, they simply vanished, taken down with suppressed weapons fire before they could alert the hive. Where groups gathered, the humans avoided them entirely, finding alternate routes with the ease of predators who understood three-dimensional terrain. In the council chamber, the observers watched in growing confusion. This wasn't how they expected a combat operation to proceed. Where was the frontal assault? The heroic charge? The desperate last stand? They're avoiding combat? One of the Shardok crystalline delegates refracted confusion in kaleidoscope patterns. They're being tactical, Ambassador Chen explained, her voice carrying through the chamber. They're assessing their enemies' patterns, learning how they move, how they react, where they congregate. But they're running out of time, Zaxthor protested. The researchers have only 78 minutes, Chen finished. My people are aware. They're also aware that rushing in without intelligence gets everyone killed. On the station, Webb's team had cleared 3 sections without raising an alarm. They'd eliminated 17 Ravagers in total, and the hive hadn't noticed. Each kill had been precise, clinical, efficient. No wasted movement, no unnecessary risk. Pattern identified, Lieutenant Chen reported. They're organized in clusters around each breach point, with patrol routes connecting them. The Queen's probably in the largest cluster here. She marked a location. Section 7 near the main research labs. Confirmed, Sergeant Kowalski added. Heavy concentration, maybe 60 individuals. That's where they breached first. Webb studied the tactical map. They're not trying to eat the researchers, not yet. They're looking for something. The research, Lieutenant Chen realized. This is a xenobiology station. What were they studying? Webb pulled up the station manifest that Ambassador Chen had transmitted. His eyes narrowed. Ravager biology. They were studying Ravager biology, looking for communication methods or social structures. The Queen knows. Kowalski breathed. She's eliminating a threat. This isn't a random raid. It's a targeted strike. In the council chamber, xenobiologists were frantically pulling up the research station's data. The Velkari researcher who'd managed the facility appeared on a secondary display, his scales pale with fear. Yes, he stammered. We'd made a breakthrough. We discovered that the Ravager Queens have a chemical vulnerability, a pheromone that could theoretically disrupt their hive control. We were going to present our findings next cycle. They found out somehow, Ambassador Chen stated. And they came to destroy the research and everyone who knew about it. Zaxthor's expression shifted from confrontational to calculating. Then the humans aren't just rescuing researchers. They're protecting strategic intelligence. They're doing both, Chen corrected, while eliminating a threat to future stations. That's how humans fight. Multiple objectives, integrated strategy. Back on the station, Webb had gathered his team in a secured section. 59 minutes remaining. Here's the play. We split into 2 elements. Team 1 creates a diversion at the researcher's location, draws the majority of the swarm. Team 2 infiltrates Section 7 and eliminates the Queen. That's a death sentence for Team 1, Lieutenant Chen said quietly. 200 Ravagers will converge on that position. Yes, Webb agreed. That's why Team 1 is just me. The protest was immediate but brief. They all knew the math. They all understood what he was proposing. One person could move faster, hide more effectively, and survive longer against impossible odds than a group. I need 7 minutes, Webb said. 7 minutes to draw them away from Section 7 and keep them occupied. Can you eliminate the Queen in 7 minutes? Sergeant Kowalski checked his chronometer. We can do it in 5, sir. But Then I only need to survive 7. Webb's smile was cold. I've survived worse. He moved toward the researcher's location alone. The council watched with mounting horror as they realized what he intended. One human, deliberately placing himself as bait for 200 killing machines. This is insanity, the Methrin delegate bubbled. He's committing suicide. No, Ambassador Chen said softly. He's hunting, watch. Webb reached the section outside the researcher's core. He could hear them on the other side of the reinforced door, frightened, desperate, running out of air. He tapped on the door in a specific pattern, the universal signal for friendly forces. Stay inside, he said through the door's comm unit. No matter what you hear, help is coming. Then he walked into the main corridor and fired 3 shots into the ceiling. The effect was immediate. Every Ravager in range snapped their attention toward the sound. Biosigns on his scanner shifted, converged, accelerated. They were coming, all of them. Webb ran, not in panic, not in fear, but with the calculated speed of an Earth persistence hunter, the kind that had run down prey across the African savanna for hundreds of thousands of years. He knew the station's layout better than the Ravagers did. He knew where the corridors narrowed, where the bulkheads could be sealed, where the environmental systems could be manipulated. He led them on a chase through sections they'd already cleared, leaving smart minds at corners, sealing doors behind him to slow the swarm. Every 100 meters he'd stop, turn, fire precisely aimed shots that dropped Ravagers with efficient brutality, then move again before they could overwhelm his position. The council watched in stunned silence as the human did what should have been impossible. He wasn't winning, he couldn't win against those numbers. But he was surviving. More than that, he was controlling the battlefield, dictating terms, turning the hunters into the hunted. And while every eye was on Webb's desperate running battle, Team 2 had infiltrated Section 7. They moved through the darkened research labs like smoke, their suppressed weapons whispering death. Ravagers fell without understanding they were under attack. The humans had studied the enemy's patrol patterns, had learned their blind spots, had adapted their tactics to exploit every weakness. Queen located, Kowalski whispered. She's larger than expected. Heavy armor, protected by 20 guards. 4 minutes remaining on the timer, Lieutenant Chen noted. Webb's leading them away, but they'll realize it's a diversion soon. Then we hit hard and fast. Breach charges on my mark. 3, 2, 1. The charges blew simultaneously. 4 shaped explosives that breached the Queen's chamber from different angles. The humans poured in through the smoke, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns that had been drilled into muscle memory through thousands of training hours. The Queen's guards died in seconds. The Queen herself was massive, 3 times the size of a standard Ravager, her carapace covered in scarred armor that spoke of battles survived. She shrieked, a sound that transmitted through ultrasonic frequencies calling her swarm back. But the humans had anticipated that too. Pheromone disruption, now, Kowalski ordered. One of the team triggered a device. They'd cobbled together from the research station's lab equipment, a crude but effective broadcaster that flooded the area with the chemical compound the researchers had discovered. The Queen's call cut off mid-shriek, her neural link to the swarm severed. She charged at them, mandibles snapping, a creature of pure rage and instinct. They put 17 rounds into her central nervous system before she hit the ground. In the council chamber, the observers watched the Queen's biosign vanish. Immediately, the swarm's behavior changed. Without her coordination, they scattered in confusion, their hive intelligence reduced to individual instincts. Webb Queen is down, Kowalski transmitted. Say status! There was a pause. Breathing, the sound of reloading. Still mobile. Still tracking me. They haven't gotten the message yet. Give it 30 seconds. Their neural link is disrupted but not completely severed. They're falling back to individual survival instincts. The change was visible on the tactical display. The coordinated swarm pursuing Webb broke apart. Some continued their pursuit out of momentum. Others stopped, confused. A few turned and fled toward their ships. Webb stopped running. He stood in a corridor, weapon ready, and watched as the tide turned. The Ravagers that had been hunting him scattered. Those that remained aggressive found themselves facing a human who was no longer fleeing. He eliminated them with methodical precision. No mercy, no hesitation. just cold efficiency. When the section was clear, he made his way back to the researcher's position. "This is Commander Webb. Station is secure. Beginning extraction." The reinforced door opened, revealing 47 terrified Velkari researchers who'd expected to die. They stared at the human covered in carbon scoring and minor wounds, still standing, still calm. "Stay together," Webb instructed. "My team will escort you to the human ship. Watch your step, there are bodies." Team 2 arrived, and together they moved through the station. The researchers saw what 8 humans had accomplished, 214 Ravagers eliminated or driven off in under an hour. The station's corridors were littered with proof. In the council chamber, silence reigned absolute. Finally, Zaxthor spoke, his voice subdued. "They didn't just rescue the researchers. They cleared the entire station. They hunted," Ambassador Chen corrected gently, "just like you feared they could. But they hunted to protect, not to conquer." The extraction took 20 minutes. Webb and his team loaded all 47 researchers onto their ship, plus they recovered the research data on Ravager biology. As their ship broke orbit heading back toward the Council homeworld, Webb finally allowed himself to sit. His team was already cleaning weapons, checking gear, preparing for the next crisis. They didn't celebrate, didn't boast. They simply transitioned back to their ready state, like predators after a successful hunt returning to alertness in case new threats emerged. On the council feed, Webb looked directly at the camera. His expression was neutral, professional, but his eyes held something ancient, something that had allowed a weak, soft-skinned species to dominate a world full of creatures stronger, faster, and more naturally armed. "Station Omega-7 is secure," he reported. "All personnel recovered. Research data preserved. Ravager threat neutralized. The transmission cut." In the council chamber, thousands of delegates sat in stunned contemplation of what they'd witnessed. They'd asked to see humanity's true nature. Now they understood. Humanity's true nature was that of the ultimate predator, one that could choose when to hunt and when to protect. And that choice was what made them truly terrifying. Apex revealed the human ship's approach to the Council homeworld took 18 hours. During that time, the Council chamber never emptied. Delegates from across 3 galactic arms remained, watching the human ship progress on the tracking displays, dissecting every moment of the rescue operation through countless analyses. Ambassador Sarah Chen had stopped counting the requests for interviews, biological assessments, and military consultations. Instead, she stood at the observation window of the human diplomatic suite, watching ships come and go from the orbital station, and waited. Behind her, the door chimed. She turned to find Representative Zaxthor standing in the entrance, his usual aggressive posture subdued. "May I enter?" he asked, a courtesy he'd never extended before. "Of course." Chen gestured to the seats arranged in the human style. Zaxthor hesitated, then lowered himself onto one with careful deliberation. The furniture creaked under his mass but held. They sat in silence for a moment. "I owe you an apology," Zaxthor said finally, "and an explanation." Chen waited, letting him find his words. "The Velkari pride themselves on being warriors," he continued. "We climbed to dominance on our world through strength, aggression, controlled violence. When we reached the stars and found the Concordat, we expected to find kindred spirits, other species forged in the fire of survival." He looked down at his claws, flexing them slowly. "Instead, we found merchants and scientists, philosophers and artists, species that had evolved on gentle worlds or had long ago abandoned their predator heritage." "You felt alone," Chen said softly. "Yes. And then came humanity, a species that showed every sign of being like us, evolved from predators, from hunters, from a world that should have made you fierce. But you presented yourselves as peaceful." He met her eyes. "I thought you were hiding your nature out of shame or strategy. I thought I was protecting the Concordat from a species that would eventually reveal its violent truth. And now I have watched 8 of your people do what no Velkari unit could have accomplished. We've engaged the Ravagers 7 times in our military history. We've never achieved a clean victory, always Pyrrhic at best, with casualties in the dozens or hundreds." Zaxthor's tail moved in a pattern Chen's cultural briefings identified as deep respect. "Your team suffered 3 minor injuries and eliminated over 200 Ravagers while protecting civilians. It was the most efficient display of combat operations the Council has ever recorded. Chen nodded slowly. You're wondering how we did it. I'm wondering why you hide it. This capability, this potential, you could be the greatest military force in the galaxy. The Council would grant you almost anything for that protection. Instead, you offer diplomacy and trade agreements. The door chimed again. Chen glanced at her personal display. That will be Commander Webb and his team. They're being debriefed by Council military analysts. Would you like to sit in? Zaxthor's surprise was evident, but he nodded. The human team entered, and Chen was struck again by the transformation. Gone was the cold efficiency, the predatory focus. Webb smiled tiredly. His team exchanged casual remarks. They moved with relaxed awareness rather than tactical precision. They were security personnel again, not hunters. Ambassador, Webb greeted her, then noticed Zaxthor. Representative. I hope we didn't cause too much diplomatic chaos. You certainly caused something, Zaxthor replied. I have questions if you're willing. Shoot, Webb said, then caught himself. Sorry, human idiom. Ask away. How did you remain so calm? I've watched the sensor logs. Your biological readings showed elevated heart rates and adrenaline, yes, but nothing approaching the combat stress we'd expect. No panic, no fear. Webb glanced at Chen, who nodded permission to speak freely. Training helps, Webb began. But you're right, it's more than that. It's something in how humans process danger. He paused, choosing words carefully. On Earth, we evolved alongside apex predators that were faster, stronger, better armed than us. We should have been prey. We survived by developing 3 key advantages. He held up one finger. First, endurance. We're not the fastest species, but we can run longer than almost anything. Our ancestors would track prey for days, staying behind them, never giving them rest until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. A second finger. Second, adaptability. We're not specialized hunters. We can survive in deserts, tundras, jungles, mountains. We can eat almost anything. We can learn new patterns rapidly. That flexibility meant we could hunt anything, anywhere. A third finger. Third, and most important, we're social hunters. We coordinate, we plan. We communicate across distances using language that can convey complex, abstract concepts. A human hunting pack isn't just stronger than one human. It's exponentially more effective because we synchronize our efforts. All predator species have some of these traits, Zaxthor said. The Velkari are also social hunters. True, Webb agreed. But here's the key difference. We evolved these traits not to hunt stronger prey, but to hunt smarter prey. Earth's megafauna weren't just strong. They learned to recognize threats, to adapt their behavior, to avoid danger zones. So humans developed something beyond physical capabilities. What? Zaxthor leaned forward. Psychological warfare, imagination. The ability to predict what our prey would do, where they would run, how they would react, and use that against them. Webb's expression grew serious. When we hunted mammoths, we didn't just chase them. We studied them, learned their migration patterns, predicted where they'd be seasons in advance. We prepared ambush sites. We used fire to control their movement. We turned their own instincts against them. You made them afraid, Chen added quietly. Fear is a tool humans have always wielded. And that's what I saw on the station, Zaxthor said slowly. You weren't just fighting ravagers. You were manipulating them, leading them where you wanted, exploiting their hive mentality. Exactly. Once we understood how they operated, they became predictable. Webb shrugged. And predictable opponents can be defeated even with superior numbers. Lieutenant Chen spoke up. There's something else, sir. Something Representative Zaxthor should understand. She looked at the Velkari. Humans are persistence predators by nature, yes. But we're also one of the only species that became prey and survived. What do you mean? Zaxthor's confusion was evident. Most predator species evolved from other predators, she explained. Your ancestors were always hunters. But human ancestors, we were scavengers initially, medium-sized primates living in trees, avoiding the attention of big cats, hyenas, crocodiles. We were prey for millions of years before we became hunters. That should have made you weaker, Zaxthor protested. It made us paranoid. Webb corrected with a slight smile. Humans evolved with a massive amygdala, the fear center of our brain. We're naturally anxious, always scanning for threats, always preparing for the worst-case scenario. It's why humans suffer from anxiety disorders at higher rates than most species can comprehend. We're afraid, Chen said simply. Almost always at some level we're afraid. Of the dark. Of being hunted. Of things with teeth and claws coming for us or our families. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. So when we learned to fight back, Webb continued, we didn't just become hunters. We became hunters who remembered being prey. We fight with the desperation of hunted things and the intelligence of hunters. That combination is ineffective. But still, Zaxthor said, the Velkari are warriors. We train for combat our entire lives. Why can't we replicate your effectiveness? Sergeant Kowalski answered this time, his voice thoughtful. Because you train for combat. Humans train for survival. Combat is just one tool. We train in medicine because we expect to get hurt. We train in engineering because we expect things to break. We train in psychology because we expect enemies to behave unpredictably. You prepare for everything to go wrong, Zaxthor realized. Murphy's Law, Webb said, an old human military principle. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So we plan for it. Triple redundancies, multiple backup strategies, always expecting the universe to try to kill us. Because on Earth it usually was, Chen added. Another long silence. Finally, Zaxthor stood. I came here to apologize for doubting you. Now I'm not sure whether to be relieved you're peaceful or terrified of what you could accomplish if you weren't. That's the point, Ambassador Chen said gently. The Velkari achieved civilization by controlling their predator nature with law and structure. You built systems to channel your aggression productively. She stood as well, meeting the tall alien's eyes. Humans did the same thing. We just started from a different place. You learned to control your strength. We learned to control our fear and the desperation it breeds. And the result, Webb finished, is that we choose peace not because we can't fight, but because we've seen what fighting costs. Every human learns Earth history. We know what uncontrolled violence leads to. World wars that killed millions, weapons that could sterilize planets, conflicts that nearly destroyed us dozens of times. You're more afraid of yourselves than of any external threat, Zaxthor said with sudden understanding. Not afraid, Chen corrected. Respectful. We know what we're capable of. We know what happens when humans stop choosing peace and let that old predator instinct take control. She gestured to the viewport where Earth glowed in the distance. We almost killed ourselves learning that lesson. We're not eager to repeat it. The door chimed a third time. The Council Arbiter's symbol appeared on the display. The full council has reconvened, the Arbiter announced. The human delegation is requested to return to the chamber for the treaty vote. They made their way through the orbital station's corridors. Word of the rescue had spread. Delegates from dozens of species watched the humans pass with new expressions: respect, wariness, calculation. The Concordat was reassessing everything it thought it knew about humanity. The council chamber was absolutely packed when they entered. Every delegation had turned out for this moment. The rescued Velkari researchers occupied a special observation section, their presence a living reminder of what 8 humans had accomplished. Ambassador Chen took her position at the human platform. Webb and his team stood behind her at parade rest, their posture military perfect. The Arbiter began. The Council has reviewed the human delegation's rescue operation at Research Station Omega-7. All personnel recovered, all research preserved, all hostile forces neutralized. 0 casualties among rescuers or rescued. The Arbiter paused. This represents the most successful counter-Ravager operation in recorded Concordat history. Murmur ran through the chamber. Representative Zaxthor of the Velkari has withdrawn his motion, questioning human membership in the Concordat. He has submitted instead a new proposal, that humanity be invited to join the Concordat Defense Initiative, contributing military expertise and personnel to protect member worlds from external threats. Chen felt her stomach tighten. This was the moment she'd been dreading. The offer they'd known would eventually come, once the galaxy saw what humans could really do. Ambassador Chen, the Arbiter continued. Your response? Chen looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of dozens of species. Some hopeful, some nervous, some calculating the strategic advantage of having human warriors on their side. She thought of Webb's words. We choose peace not because we can't fight. The human delegation, she said clearly, respectfully declines. The chamber erupted. Shock, confusion, outrage from some quarters. The Arbiter called for order. We appreciate the honor of this offer, Chen continued when silence returned, and we understand the strategic value of what Commander Webb's team demonstrated. But humanity's position has not changed. We are explorers, traders, diplomats, and yes, when necessary, defenders. But we are not weapons for hire. You would deny the Concordat your capabilities? One delegate demanded. When they could save countless lives? We will help defend Concordat members, Chen clarified. That's already in our treaty obligations. Human security forces will respond to emergencies just as they did at Station Omega-7. But we will not militarize our relationship with the Concordat. We will not become the galaxy's enforcers. Why not? The question came from a Methrin delegate. Your species is clearly evolved for this role. Because, Webb stepped forward, we know where that path leads. He gestured to the display showing Earth. Our world has seen empire after empire rise and fall. Everyone started with the same justification. We're stronger, so we should protect others. We're better warriors, so we should maintain order. And every empire, Lieutenant Chen added, eventually stopped seeing themselves as protectors and started seeing themselves as rulers. The strong protecting the weak becomes the strong controlling the weak. We won't make that mistake, Ambassador Chen stated firmly. Humanity will contribute to Concordat security through training, intelligence sharing, and emergency response. We'll help you defend yourselves, but we won't become the military force you rely on, because that dependency corrupts both parties. You're afraid of your own power, Zaxthor said, not accusatory but observational. Yes, Chen admitted simply. We evolved as apex predators. We know how easily protect becomes control, becomes conquer. We've done it to ourselves too many times. We won't risk doing it to the galaxy. The Arbiter's platform pulsed with what might have been approval. A fascinating position. The Council will note that humanity declines military expansion while maintaining defensive cooperation. There's one more thing, Chen said. The research data from Station Omega-7, the Ravager pheromone disruption technology. We're providing that to all Concordat species immediately, with full technical specifications, for free. This caused another stir. Technology of that strategic value was worth billions in trade credits. Why? The Methrin delegate asked. Because 47 researchers almost died protecting that knowledge, Webb answered. Because the Ravagers will continue to be a threat to everyone. And because humanity doesn't hoard defensive technology when people's lives are at stake. Also, Chen added with a slight smile, because if every Concordat species can defend themselves against Ravagers, you need human military intervention less. It serves our strategic goal of remaining non-militarized. The chamber fell into contemplative silence. The Arbiter consulted with senior delegates, then turned back to the humans. The Concordat accepts humanity's revised position. The treaty will be amended to include technology sharing and defensive cooperation protocols, without military integration requirements. The Arbiter paused. The Council also acknowledges that humanity has demonstrated both its capabilities and its restraint. You have proven yourselves worthy of full Concordat membership not through strength alone, but through the wisdom to limit that strength. The vote was called. Species after species registered their approval. When Zaxthor's vote came, he stood fully. The Velkari vote to approve humanity's full membership, he stated formally. Then he added, I challenged humans to prove their peaceful nature was genuine. They have done so in a way I did not expect, by showing they could be fearsome warriors and choosing not to be. The final tally was unanimous. As the chamber erupted in ceremonial celebration, Chen felt the tension drain from her shoulders. Webb caught her eye and nodded. They'd passed the test not by hiding what humanity was, but by demonstrating they could control it. Later, as the diplomatic functions wound down and the crowds dispersed, Chen found herself back at the observation window. Zaxthor joined her, as was becoming a pattern. A question, if I may, the Velkari said. Always. Your Commander Webb, how many like him does humanity have? Chen smiled. In terms of special operations soldiers? About 15,000 currently active. Zaxthor's scales rippled in shock. That many? That's a substantial military force. Actually, it's quite small by human historical standards. We've downsized significantly since the colonial period. She saw his expression. But if you're asking how many humans could fight like that if necessary, if Earth or our colonies were truly threatened, yes, Chen looked out at the stars. Every human in our military receives combat training. That's about 8 million. Every human in our civilian security forces could be militarized if needed. Another 20 million. And Earth has a population of 11 billion, all of whom learn basic survival and resistance tactics in school. She let that sink in. But here's what you really need to understand, she continued. Those numbers don't matter. Because humanity has decided, collectively, that our future isn't in being the galaxy's warriors. We've been there. We've done that. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Now we want to be explorers, scientists, artists, diplomats. Predators choosing to be prey, Zaxthor mused. No, Chen corrected gently. Predators choosing to be people. There's a difference. They stood in companionable silence watching ships drift past against the starfield. Will there be other tests? Zaxthor asked. Other species who doubt you? Probably. Fear of the unknown is pretty universal. Chen turned to face him. But I hope we've established a pattern. When challenged, we'll prove ourselves through action, not aggression. When threatened, we'll defend without escalating. And when offered power, we'll choose responsibility instead. It's a narrow path you're walking. It's the only path that leads where we want to go. Zaxthor bowed, a gesture of deep respect in Velkari culture. Then I hope you succeed, Ambassador. The galaxy needs what humanity offers. Not warriors who could conquer, but warriors who choose not to. After he left, Chen remained at the window. In her mind, she replayed the last 50 years of human history among the stars. 50 years of choosing peace. 50 years of proving that being capable of violence and choosing not to employ it was its own kind of strength. 50 years of walking the narrow path between being dangerous, enough to defend themselves and restrained enough not to become the threat they defended against. It was exhausting, but it was better than the alternative. On the diplomatic feed, she watched the human ship prepare for departure. Webb and his team were loading supplies, running final checks, preparing for the journey home. They moved with casual efficiency, their predator mode completely disengaged. Tomorrow they'd be security personnel again. Protecting diplomats, standing watch, being present but unobtrusive until they were needed, until the next time someone threatened the pack. And then, for however long necessary, they would transform again into what humanity had always been, capable of being, the apex predators of a death world who had learned to aim that capability with precision and withdraw it with discipline. The galaxy had wanted to see humanity's true nature. Chen hoped they understood what they'd witnessed. Not a species pretending to be peaceful, but a species that had earned the right to choose peace because they understood exactly what they were capable of if they chose war. That understanding, that choice, was the difference between an apex predator and an apex civilization. Humanity had chosen to be both, and to let the second nature guide the first. It was the hardest thing any species had ever attempted, but then again, humans had always specialized in doing hard things. That's how you survived when everything on your planet was trying to kill you, and that's how you thrived when you finally reached the stars.